Hello, Mike House here. Today, this is going to be my favorite Mike House Speaks ever because I'm joined by my mentor, Felicia Williams. So I've known Felicia for a little over 10 years. In fact, she's the reason why we are in Cincinnati, Ohio today because she hired me. So we made that transition here in February 2008, and over 10 years later, we're still here, and I'm still connected with Felicia. So, for starters, who is Felicia Williams?
Wow, that's a good question, Mike, and glad you're still here. And happy Halloween, by the way. So Felicia Williams started out as Felicia Jackson, little African-American girl growing up on the west side of Chicago. I went to school at Florida A&M University, go Rattlers. HBCU was a big deal for me back then to go to a historically black college, and I think it benefited me through my personal and professional career because of the relationships that I formed at Florida A&M. Fast forwarding today, I'm a mother of two wonderful children. My son is a sophomore at the University of Dayton. He's studying mechanical engineering, and my daughter is a freshman at Northwestern, and she's part of the Medill School of Journalism, and I'm very, very proud of both of them. Lastly, or maybe as important, I am also the Executive Vice President, Chief Accounting Officer, Controller, and Enterprise Risk Officer for Macy's, and I do not get paid by the title.
That's quite a bit.
That's quite a title, yeah.
All right, so we're here in your nice plush office on the 20th floor in downtown Cincinnati.
My home away from home
with
here.
This nice view
yes,
here.
It is a very nice view.
So, a quote that I wanted to run by you and get your opinion on it, what you think about it. It's by a guy named Neville Goddard. And he says, "The ideal you seek and hope to attain will not manifest itself, will not be realized until you have imagined that you are already that ideal." So when you hear that, what does that mean to you? Like, did you imagine yourself being this corporate executive?
No, absolutely not. It's interesting. My imagination took me to undefined places. I knew where I did not want to be, meaning I knew I wanted to get an education. I knew I wanted to explore the world, but there was nothing in my upbringing to suggest that I wanted to be something specific. I absolutely wanted to be an executive in corporate America, or a doctor, or a judge. I just knew I wanted to improve my situation. And so my imagination took me out of my reality, which was great, but it didn't necessarily take me to somewhere specific. I was very conscious of Mike not wanting to do better, be better, have a different upbringing and environment for my kids and my family. And I had a general sense of what that looked like, but a very, I'll say, eclectic sense of how to get there. And so most of my life, I have been focused on continuing to improve, continuing to learn, continuing to get better, and making decisions and pursuing opportunities as they came along. And it's a different way of career pathing. It wasn't, okay, I'm going to start here, and in 10 years I'm going to be there. Mainly because my mom says to me, my family calls me Lisa, and my mom says, "Okay, Lisa, you keep making plans because it just makes God laugh." And she's right, and so I try not to get too far ahead of what God has planned for me. I can have plans for myself, but ultimately it's not going to be 100% up to me. So I just keep trying to move forward.
Okay. So you mentioned God.
Yeah.
What role has faith played in your life?
That's actually a very timely question, because I just joined. I'm a member of Crossroads Church, and I'm a member of this huddle group. It's about 12 women, and it is a continuation of a spiritual journey that has had stops and starts. And what I mean by that, I kind of grew up in the church, kind of didn't. went away from the church in college and in my earlier professional part of my career. Got back into the church when we moved to Atlanta. Then we moved out of the country, moved away from the church. Now, in order to have a relationship with God, you don't necessarily, as you know, have to be involved in the church.
Right.
And so when I say the church, I meant my relationship with God has evolved. And one of the things that, as I look back on my entire journey and my entire relationships with family and friends and children, my relationship with God is the one that I wish I had focused on first. You know, and as I understand and as I have grown spiritually, it is that relationship that honestly has sustained me clearly through a lot of ups and downs and good times and bad times. But I think it's the one that I've probably taken the most for granted, and the one that I wish I had worked on more over the course of my life.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm glad I have come to that realization, and I'm very excited about where I am now with my relationship with God, because it is providing me insight, context, appreciation, and a level of peace. So, as I get to another crossroads in my life with respect to what do I want to do next, as I mentioned, my children are out of the house. They may or may not ever come back to Cincinnati. And so as you take stock of, okay, what's next for Felicia? And every now and then I ask myself, what do I want to be when I grow up? Because I am still growing. I am able to make that decision and think about that differently because of this evolving relationship with God, because now I'm listening more. I'm learning to listen more to what God wants me to do, not necessarily what I think I should do. And those aren't always the same. And what God has planned for me may be scary. It may be, you get that like, oh, no.
Right.
I don't want to do that. I'm not sure I want to do that. And so I'm at that point in my life where I'm really trying to listen for God to tell me where God is leading me next.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So you are probably one of the best individuals that I've ever come across that has been able to connect with anybody. Everybody loves Felicia. As soon as they meet you, it's an instant connection. How did you develop that? Is that natural for you, or?
It was. I think it's in part natural, and part, honestly, Mike. I kind of glossed over sort of all the places I have lived, and I think by virtue of having traveled early in my career to different countries and then living outside of the United States, you just get an appreciation for people and humans. And if you open yourself up to people and their culture, one of the things I've learned just really simply, we are pretty much all the same as human beings.
Okay.
We want to live in a nice, decent neighborhood. We want nice things for our families. We want to be safe. We want opportunities. We want to be treated fairly as a whole. Not the United States. This is just most human beings. So I find that if you talk to someone who you do not think you're going to have a connection with, you will find a connection. And people assume that I can only connect with another African American woman or another African American or even another executive. That's not true. I have learned that is so not true. You can stop and talk to someone, and I talk to people on the airplane because I'm on the plane a lot, and someone will sit next to me and we'll start talking, and eventually you'll work your way around to something that you have in common. I was coming from the airport and I was in an Uber, and the Uber driver was from Kentucky, and I have no idea how we got on the topic of politics, because I do try to stay away from politics. One's are just depressing. And he said, I'm just going to say I'm a supporter of President Trump, and I think he expected me to react a certain way, and I said, that is interesting. I said, because I wanted to ask Trump supporters questions. I was like, I want an opportunity to learn, and he was like, oh, I was like, no, it's like, say what you want to say. This is really informative and very interesting for me. And he did, and he went on to articulate his position, but it also gave me an opportunity to just drop in some, I'm going to say, points of clarification, a little bit of different perspective on my views, which he was open to. And there were some things that I said about how I had to teach my son not only to pass the driver's license test, but how to react if he was stopped by the police. And I'm saying this to this Uber driver from Kentucky who has a child, and it's just completely outside of his realm. And he's saying, why would you have to do that? Which then led us to the conversation about Super Bowl, the football, and kneeling at the national anthem, and why from my perspective those all are connected, because it's ultimately how I have to raise my child. And it was a very good conversation, and he said he appreciated yeah it was pretty deep for an Uber ride, but my point to say is, when he said he was a Trump supporter, here's this African American woman in the back seat of his car, I know he expected a certain level of hostility or me to make assumptions about maybe now I'm in the car with a racist. And my reaction was, ooh, great. Tell me why. Tell me what you're thinking. Let's share. And so all of that to say, I do try to give people a chance. I try to listen to them. I try to find some point of commonality, or as you know, try to convince them that I'm right and they're wrong, which is my ultimate goal.
And how's that working for you?
It works some days. Some days it don't. It does not. Some days it helps to be the boss, because then that I'm right by default, right?
Yeah. Cool. All right, so we live in an achievement-oriented society. You know, we're judged based on what we do, based on titles, degrees. You know, did you go to school here in Cincinnati? Where are you from? What side of town you live on? What high school did you go to? All of these things are judgmental calls.
It's annoying.
It's annoying. Yes.
Annoying. Yeah. It really is. It really is. We went to a going away party for a friend of mine, and we were all sitting around the table, and the couple sitting next to me, you started the conversation, where are you from, where'd you go to school, but then it evolved to, do you know so, and I'm not going to drop the names, but it turned into 6 degrees of important people, and do you know these important people, important in their circle. And I don't know, I've just never been that person.
Okay.
And as you know, I can do it. I can turn it on and say it and do the, I call it the Bouge-ghetto.
Bouge-ghetto. Bouge-ghetto. That's a new term.
Bouge-ghetto. Yeah, I can go there and say yes, and and I tease you about the Afro-Saxon voice and all of that, which is necessary in some circumstances, but it's not my default mode. But there are people, they will hear, oh, you live here, or so and so, and then it just becomes a competition or an effort just to one up each other on who you know and who you're connected to. And I have no idea what that says about you as a person, or how they then interpret me as a person. The fact that I may know someone and someone they perceive to be as important, so what? That's not my life. Just because I may know, fill in a blank important person, that's that person's life. That has nothing to do with me. And the fact that you give me points because I know fill in the blank important person, there's just something wrong with that. So anyway, but that's that, and so I've tried to raise my kids with an appreciation for who deal with the person in front of you, and deal with them as they are. And it's hard, Mike. It's really, really hard. Not because we all make assumptions. We all have our unconscious biases. Right. We all see people and make snap decisions. And it's human. But I try to push through that and say, okay, let me really give this person a chance.
Okay. All right. So, last question for you. What's the greatest lesson that you've ever learned?
Ooh, wow, I've learned so many. So many lessons. Part of it goes back to where we started. It's actually come full circle to the beginning of the conversation, and that is the spiritual journey. We talk about, my mom says this thing, people come into your lives for a reason. And as I have gone through, hopefully half my life, I realize people don't come into your life. You allow people into your life. If you think about how many people you interact with every day, the security guards that we see, the maintenance crew, your coworkers, if you take the bus or transportation, there are people that you see every day. those people have not come into your life. Those are people that you see, but they haven't come into your life because you have not allowed them into your life.
Mm-hmm.
And when you allow people in your life, then yeah, you're allowing someone into your life for a reason, and they can usually benefit you and teach you something. But people don't just come into your life. You have to invite them in. You have to allow them to share. You have to share a piece of yourself, and oftentimes that requires you to be vulnerable with someone else. And we are not typically vulnerable with other people, particularly in a corporate setting. It's very, very hard to be vulnerable. And it's very hard to open yourself up. And I challenge people, I simply say, particularly for people in corporate America who stay late or get in early, do you know the names of the security people? Do you know the names of the people who maybe give you lunch every day? Do you know the names of the people that clean your offices or clean the floor in your offices? You know, these are people you may see all the time, but these people have lives. They have stories.
Right.
Do you ever take the time to say, hey, you know, but there's this perception, I am the, and then you are the, you know, down here, and therefore the worlds are apart. There's a young lady here who I see, because I tend to work late sometimes, a lot of times, and I won't say her name because she has lupus, and she's so sweet. She comes in, I was working late, and she was doing a walk, and she said, Miss Felicia, she said, would you buy a ticket and support me in this walk? And I said, yeah. And I said, well, why are you doing this walk? And she said, because I actually have lupus. And we started talking about that. And you know, and again, Mike, it's just treating people, seeing them. You know, it takes a lot to see someone. If you walk down the street, people just see this tall, dark person. You know, they don't see Mike. And that may be okay, because we don't have to interact with every single person. Right. When I walk down the street, and particularly out of context, as I'm in Kroger, people see me who I may see every day in this building, and they don't recognize me because I'm out of context. And so if I am in Kroger, in my Kroger grocery shopping outfit, and I see typically someone, a white person that I work with, it'll take them a minute to recognize, like, because, you know, all they're seeing is this, that they're not looking at me, they're not seeing me.
Wow.
That happens all the time. That happens all the time. But in the context of this building, oh yeah, okay, now I see you. I see you. It happens in our stores. You know, I'll go in and this happens a lot. You know, this happens where you go into a store and there's a white person and you're standing there. They see the white person. They don't really. They're conscious of someone standing there, but they see color, and it's like they look through you. And so, long way of saying, I'm sorry. Lessons I have learned, greatest lessons I have learned. Do not treat people as you wish to be treated. Treat people as they wish to be treated. Because it's like they do unto others as you would have them do unto you. No, do unto others as they want to be done to. You know, because how I want to be treated and communicated with is not going to be how you want to be treated and communicated with. I guarantee you, we're two different human beings. And so I try to figure out what that person needs, not what I want to give them, not what I want, but what do they want? How can I see you for who you are and maybe have a relationship at that level? And that's what I have learned, and that's what I try to do. Not always successfully, but I try.
Wow.
You know, you're my favorite.
Say that one more time.
You know, you're my favorite.
This is why I love this lady. She really is my favorite, and she has taught me so much over the 10-year period that I've known her, almost 11 years. So thanks again, Felicia.
It has been my pleasure.
For joining me today. Look forward to the next Mike House Speaks.
Me too.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.